Hi, my name is Cooper Kane. This is my date of birth speech for public speaking. Um, so you might want to know what the most influential day in history is. You might be thinking about 9/11. You might be thinking about the day that um, America won the war. You might be thinking about all those things. But the real day is September 7th. And no, it's not just because it's my birthday. It's because of tons of historical events that happened on that day. On September 7th, there were a lot of war moments that have changed the history of not just America, but of the world. These events include the Chinese farmer rebel of Dutch rule in 1652, 1864, Atlanta evacuated by the Union Army. This is more of they kind of set up camp there, getting ready for their march to the sea, but I'll talk about that more when I get there. And in 1965, the Japan Army surrendered to the U.S. Marines. My first point is about the Chinese farmers. It dates very far back, but back then it was more in like Taiwan. It was ruled by the Dutch. And so these Chinese farmers went out and they were like, "We're done," and they got wooden spears and stormed the gates of the Dutch village, and they started fighting the Dutch because that was their land, but they were being ruled by another country. And here's the thing, like, if that didn't happen, what would this world look like today? Because, like, so many things are made in China, like, made in Taiwan. Like, you see all these things, like, you read their label, it says, made in China, made in Taiwan, made in Vietnam. But you think, man, if that place was still ruled by the Dutch, still ruled by the British, like, what would that look like today? And it's super important that these places have changed over history because of what is happening in the world now. My second point is in preparation for Sherman's march to the sea, General Sherman made the decision to camp in Atlanta. They had just had a battle and the Union Army had just won. This is kind of the turning point of the war, was the march to the sea. So you can kind of consider the war before a little bit of a turning point because they won Atlanta. Now they're camping in Atlanta for about 2 months, getting ready to march to the sea and burn everything in their path. This is really close to me because I live in Atlanta. And you kind of think like, oh, Atlanta's the powerhouse until they lose. So what had happened was the Union won the war, and then the Union decided to camp so that their army could recuperate, get ready for this next part, and they were going to march from, I think it was Macon to the sea, which is pretty far, and burning everything in their path. So that's why there's not much history left in Atlanta. And then my last point was when the Japanese actually surrendered to the U.S. Marines on the beach. This is actually a really cool event that happened. I didn't know this happened on my birthday. It's it's a big deal. You gotta think, well, if the war would have kept going, how would the Japanese have affected the U.S.? If the war would have kept going, would more people have joined the war? Like, you have to think about all these things that are going on, and you have to go, man, like, we won. We won the war, and that's why I get to live the life that I live. And, like, I can only imagine what would happen if the war would have gone on any longer. The amount of more casualties, the amount of more sadness. Like, my family couldn't even been here. Like, my grandfather was fighting in Japan. Imagine if they had to keep going, he had to keep going to wars. Like, I could not be here because of a war extension. All in all, you gotta think that September 7th is the most influential day in history, especially in my view of going back to World War II. That's probably the closest war to me that I can relate to, the U.S. can relate to. I think I'm alive because of what happened then. I get my freedom because of what happened then. So basically, just let's review my main points of why September 7th is the best. Is because in 1652, the Chinese farmer got to rebel against Dutch rule, and they won back Taiwan. Atlanta got to go camp. The Union Army started to camp in Atlanta, getting ready for their march to the sea to change the whole war, basically changing America. And in 1965, Japan Army surrendered to the U.S. Marines. And September 7th isn't just my birthday. It's the most influential day in history.